Yes.
Yep.
We can. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Okay. I was thinking if there's a delay, I might try to come in on my phone instead and see if that works better.
You sound good.
Okay.
It's funny, your sound is better than it's been in a while, and because it matters.
Well, welcome everyone to the pre-workshop session for the Mindset Systems Workshop 2. Today is Friday, March 28th, 2014. And we have got a phenomenal afternoon planned for all of you. This is something that I have been looking forward to for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years that could absolutely positively never have been put together if it wasn't for one of the Directions U bachelor students, Sarah Rockwell. Sarah, tell them a little bit about who you are and what your business is all about.
My name is Sarah Rockwell, and I have 2 websites, spiritualcoachingforyou.com, and I also have a membership site, howcanidistress.com. And I focus on working with people with the concept of spaces of our lives to create or change the spaces in their lives so that they can lead more productive and fulfilled lives. And I learned the, what?
Go ahead.
And I learned the heart virtue process a couple of years ago, and I'm a heart virtue expert, so I'm allowed to share this knowledge with others. And I look forward to doing that today.
Oh, I am so excited about it. There are very few people who are certified to facilitate the heart virtues process. I've been through the process personally, and you know, it's information that I wish I would have known when I was back in my teens, because it made every part of my life make more sense. And now that I know it, my heart virtue is what drives everything I do. But before I turn it over to Sarah and another DU bachelor student, Cynthia Gardner-O'Neill, who I'll introduce in a little bit, let's have Jack and I kind of give context to why mindset is so important to the success of your business. Jack, why is mindset so important to the success of your business?
Well, first of all, it's not even a component or an add-on or a module to your life or your business. It's everything, I've come to find. It's the core from which my success in business and in life emanates. And I never really thought, I mean, if I would meet myself back 4 or 5 years ago, the new me and that me, I would have thought, the heck are you talking about? What, huh? I just got to get this opt-in page done, or I was just in total battle mode all the time. And I would not have understood myself. So I would have blown me off, and it took me quite a while. I mean, I had a pretty successful career by all rights with internet stuff for well over a decade before I started to realize I was doing it wrong. I was doing okay doing it wrong, but I was also stressed out, and I was also starting a family, and new demands on my time that didn't exist before started to crop up, and I realized I couldn't just throw myself into business the way I was doing it and be successful anymore, because back then I didn't have anything. I could just work. I had that silly little thing that we get pounded into us in the very beginning, that work ethic. You know, you don't get anything without sweat equity. You don't in life. You don't get anywhere. And so I was able to do that for a while until I wasn't. And when I wasn't, I was desperate. I needed to find a way to approach business in a different way and life in a different way in order to grow from where I was and stay sane and be able to do all of the things that I wanted to do. And it all emanates completely from mindset. And is why that, you know, we put that first at Directions University. When people start in the bachelor's program, that's the first thing we talk about. We don't talk about SEO and opt-in pages and business systems or anything until we have got a thorough understanding and a thorough foundation set on mindset. And that's the exact reason why. Again, people have to come to that open to it in the first place, open to learning more, open to the possibility that they're missing something really, really big. And that's what these things are for. So congratulations to everybody who got on this call because you're there. And I know what you're about to experience if you're in any remote situation like I was when I first started paying attention to people like Sarah and Cynthia. And so I just can't wait to see what the feedback is after today because I know it's going to be an amazing thing.
It really is. And, you know, we use this label mindset, but we don't often talk about what that really entails. Mindset really encompasses so many different aspects of life and business. It's everything from your attitude. Recently, in the Directions U community, we all got to experience something that was very negative, that really put us all in a very odd, uncomfortable place, didn't it, Jack? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, just making
Sorry,
sure.
I muted myself. There was a little noise here. Yes, definitely. There was negative, but that's your sequitur.
Yeah, but by the end of it, not one of us felt anything negative at all, did we, Sarah?
No, we didn't.
And that part of it, that feeling of how you can transform a negative into a positive, it's mindset all the way. Sarah, for you, how did that negative turn into not just a positive, but like, oh my gosh, so many positive things?
Diamonds in the sky. I was totally blessed.
Great way to say it. You really were. You really were. And even that isn't the stopping point. When you have the right mindset, in part, it's looking at negative things to see the positive in them. But those who really master mindset take it one step further than that. Not just recognizing the positive, but truly being grateful, both for the negative and the positive, because without the negative thing happening, the positive thing couldn't have happened either. And when you can really take it to that level, where you can truly be grateful, that's when big things start to happen in your life and your business. Everything is energy. And when we get together on April 10th and 11th, Robert and Terry are going to talk a lot about this. Chief Robert Taltree and Terry Taltree. Terry and I call one another sisters. We truly believe we are sisters. They are the dean of the Directions U School of Personal Success that's getting ready to open in April. They are also the founders of HowToLiveOnPurpose.com. They're going to talk a lot about how everything is energy. And because everything is energy, everything is connected. Your thoughts are very much connected to your actions, which are very much connected to the results that you experience. And if you can transform your thoughts into more positive thoughts and truly be grateful for everything that you experience, good and bad, it can help you to attract bigger, better, more positive things in huge ways. I really never realized how important mindset was until I was told by my doctors that I was literally on death's doorstep and I had 12 to 18 months to live. What saved my life wasn't medicine, it wasn't my doctors, it was 100% mindset. And to look back on my long illness, 10 years in a hospital bed or wheelchair, more than 50 different operations, 9 major reconstructive surgeries on my spine, 42 pills per day, 4 continuous IVs per day, about every 2 to 3 hours I was changing 1 or more IV bags. That was my life. today I can look back on that horrendous experience, $6.1 million hard cash and medical bills, and be absolutely, totally in gratitude for every single piece of it. And what lets me say that so openly and so strongly is because had I not had every single part of those 10 years of hell, I would not have gotten to the place that I am today in understanding mindset and energy and understanding that everything really is connected and that we truly can be masters of our own destiny, whether that's in health, whether that's in business, whether that's in relationships. Your mindset is the key to everything. And another component of what mindset really is understanding your purpose, determining what your passion is, really deciding what legacy you want to leave on this planet, and even your goals and choosing to set your goals is a big part of mindset. So when we get back together again on the 10th and 11th, we're going to talk a lot more in detail about many of those different components of mindset. We're going to have a module on goal setting. We're going to have some exercises that we do to help you get in touch with your passion and figure out how your passion can play a role in your business. Robert and Terry are going to talk a lot about what they call the Native American medicine wheel and how that can help guide you in life and business. They're going to talk about their program called the Miracle Mind Shift Month, which many Directions U Bachelor students have experienced firsthand. And it can literally lead to what will feel like miracles. They very much are miracles. Whether you're trying to transform your health, I use mindset to overcome colds and flus and bladder infections and abscessed teeth and you name it. Whether you're working on your business, mindset is 100% responsible for the success of Directions U. Whether you're wanting to improve relationships in your life, really working through all that you're going to get in the next couple of weeks from this workshop will help you with all of it. But one of the best ways to help you really get into that is what you're about to experience here today. I'm going to let Sarah take it over in just a few minutes. And Sarah is going to be joined by Cynthia Gardner-O'Neill, the founder of the Center for Loving Consciousness at lovingconsciousness.com. Together, they're really going to help you understand what your heart is and why your heart is not just the thing that keeps your body ticking, but the thing that keeps both your life and your business ticking. And Sarah's really going to help you better understand what is your heart virtue, and she's going to share with you how you can discover your heart virtue as well. My heart virtue is pretty simple. I am committed to transformation through relationships. Those of you that know me, that have been in my world for quite some time, if you look at any part of my life or business, isn't that the core of all of it? Everything I do is about transformation through relationships. I teach people how to build businesses by transformation through relationships. I want my students to really go out and build relationships with their prospects, with their customers, with their JV partners. I truly believe that transformation through relationships can lead to touching every life on this planet. It guides every decision I make, whether that's a personal one or a business one. I can only imagine how much easier it would have been to get to the place I am at today in my business had I known that I am committed to transformation through relationships when I first got started. I didn't know that when I first got started. I kind of felt it because your heart virtue is so much a part of you that it's literally a part of your DNA, as Sarah will be showing you in a few minutes. But I didn't know it in a succinct way. It wasn't something I had as a tool to guide every decision I made. But now that I do have that, boy, on a daily basis, I can look at what shows up and ask myself, does that fit into being committed to transformation through relationships? No. Okay, bye-bye, next. So things get a lot easier. And you make a lot better decisions once you understand and discover your heart virtue. So with that, I am totally elated to turn it over to Sarah and Cynthia. Sarah, would you like to have control so you can open up that beautiful presentation?
That would be great. Thank you, Gina.
You are welcome. Okay, you should see a button that says Show My Screen. Yay! We see it.
Okay, great. First, before we get into the slides, I'm just going to talk a little bit, and I'd like to read you a quote from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? My heart virtue is, I am committed to passion, intimacy, and aliveness. Do you get a sense that there is something within you aching to be expressed? Do you feel a yearning to find a calling that completes you? After all, at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, what is it really? It is only the passage of time and the management and the maintenance of our body, or is it more? It's not only earning enough money to pay our bills and take a few questions. How are you? What is it that you really want? Imagine rubbing a lantern and a genie coming out. Think about it. What is it that you really want? What is it that you don't want? And the third question is, what is your biggest concern? I am committed to seeing what you really want. You are right. You want more for your life. If you know your heart virtue, you will have this. The history of the heart virtues and the hero's paradigm was created by Greg Moores. His last name now is Montana and not Moores. But he was a monk for 8 years, and spent time meditating, questioning his spiritual path, but also studying saints. And the Heart Virtue program came out of this study, all the studying that he did. He studied the saints, but also studied elderly on their deathbeds. And 5 regrets of the elderly were identified. What do you think they discovered? Well,
we have people unmuted,
yeah.
but we can also
Yeah.
have them type into the questions.
Yes, I would love to hear.
What do you guys think were the biggest regrets that people had when they were on their deathbeds?
For me, this is
so they hadn't spent more time with their family?
I find that it.
More time with their family from Aileen. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay.
I say I found that it's about not being more in their hearts and being loving with themselves and others. Not loving more.
Ah, and John says not doing something meaningful.
And Jack says, sweating the small stuff. Well, the order of what they were is this. One was that they felt they should spend more time in contemplation. the second one was that they wish they'd take more risks in their life. The third was that they wish they had left a legacy. And the fourth was they wish they had said, I love you more to the people in their lives that they loved. And number 5 was, I wish I had laughed more. No one ever said on their deathbed, I wish I worked more, I wish I had more money, or I wish I spent more time at the office. None of those were communicated. Also, when they looked at the skills of the heroes who had the most fulfilled lives, what they found is that they had 3 skills. Number 1 was to know thyself. Number 2 was to communicate powerfully and beautifully what they stood for. And number 3 was to make a contribution. And you can see what the connection is, because knowing thyself is contemplation. Communicating powerfully and beautifully what they stood for is risk, taking risks, because even a small act of courage each day is a risk to some people. And the third one, making a contribution, connects with legacy. Many have had breakthroughs in their lives when they have discovered their heart virtue. Then they have taken their heart virtue and communicated it powerfully and beautifully to their world with clarity and confidence to make a life contribution. If you want to be admired, heart virtues is a first step. Let's identify some of the heart virtues of some of our heroes. What do people think that Mother Teresa's heart virtue is?
That's a great question. Anybody know what Mother Teresa's heart virtue might be?
Right, exactly. How about Martin Luther King?
Yeah, I was going to say compassion also.
Equality.
Kindness and compassion.
Let me just read a little bit of his speech to you. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. And the speech, of course, goes on and on. But he mentions the word brotherhood all through his speech. Now, whether his brotherhood came from a drive from freedom or it was his heart virtue of freedom that drove brotherhood, we don't know. I mean, we would have to ask him personally, and that's impossible. Let's look at Gandhi's heart virtue.
Sarah?
Yes.
I would say also that his heart virtue was vision, because he mentioned the word dream a tremendous number of times.
Yes.
Good point, John. Okay, so Gandhi.
Yeah.
Gandhi.
What's Gandhi's heart virtue?
Non-violence. Or peace, I suppose.
Humility.
Yep. Peaceful liberation.
Yeah.
What about Abraham Lincoln?
I would say very similar to Martin Luther King as far as equality, compassion, kindness, community, brotherhood.
They're all very good. What Greg thought was unity, because he tried to unite everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, we're just going to review that contemplation is to know yourself. By taking risk, you communicate powerfully and beautifully, and that is taking a risk. And then you're trying to make a contribution, your legacy. So success in life seems to be related to these three skills. These heroes expressed their heart virtues in everything they lived and did. It was the foundation of their success. It was the core of everything in their life and everything that fulfilled them in their lives. So if you want to have a fulfilled life, you would want to know your heart virtue, and then you would want to live your heart virtue. There are also examples of heart virtues or virtues all around us. There are virtues in our culture. There are virtues in religion, in corporations, and in animals. So let's look at a few of the countries. What about America? What do you think the heart virtue of America is?
Freedom.
Right on. And you see that, I mean, that's probably why we're over in Afghanistan and other places in the world, is of America's belief in freedom. What about Japan?
World domination.
Innovation?
You know, there was a book written by the guy that was the founder or head of Sony and someone else, that in the book they basically said, since they couldn't defeat the world with the war, in World War II, they were going to do it economically. So it's kind of like, whenever I look at the Japanese, it just seems like they're out trying to conquer the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, believe it or not, theirs is honoring their ancestors.
Yeah, Jim got it.
More traditional thing, yeah.
Yeah. What about China?
That's a tough one.
They do have a strong family background, too.
Wow.
Is it tradition?
You're pretty close. It's community. Now let's look at a few of the animals in our lives. What about when you think about a lion? What do you think of?
Courage.
Majesty.
A lion's heart virtue is leadership. And I think you'll all get this one. What about an owl?
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
Right. Right. What about a dog?
Loyalty.
Yes.
Companionship.
Right, loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
What about a cat?
Independence.
Right. What about a horse?
I was going to say curiosity.
Freedom.
A horse
Very, very
is about
close.
movement.
It's about liberation.
Mm.
And let's look at a few of the names in our culture.
This is the year of the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the name Mary? What do some of you might know what different names mean or are associated with? What about Mary?
Mary, the mother.
Faith?
Service.
It's faith.
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 Faith. What about Hannah? Does anybody know Hannah?
Hannah.
It's grace. So our heart virtue is what Gina said earlier, is like our spiritual DNA, and now we'll go to the slides a little bit. And on this first page,
before you go into that,
yep.
Wasn't it easy to recognize in so many of the things that Sarah just shared what their heart virtue was? Imagine what it will be like to build your business when you know your own heart virtue. How can that shape your business slightly differently than it might be right this minute? That's the ultimate goal of this particular workshop. It's to help you get clear on that thing that becomes something you are so committed to that it gets infused in everything. What you do to create your vortex and your funnel would look very differently once you know your heart virtue, wouldn't it? What you do with content changes.
Yeah.
What you do with joint ventures can be impacted by it. There isn't one aspect of your business that wouldn't be slightly different in appearance, at least outward, once you know what your heart virtue is. Now can you see why I want you guys to know your heart virtue so badly? Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, in this diagram, it's a little fuzzy, so let me just explain it to you. It's looking from the inside out, but let's just talk about the circles. Under behaviors, what it says is it says toward happiness, away from suffering. So these are the things that we do bodily and with our actions, plus also, the words that we use. In the next circle in, it's beliefs, which is thoughts and feelings.
Ron, if you want to self-mute, then I don't have to leave you muted on our end. That way we don't have to hear your typing. Do you know how to self-mute, Ron?
I don't think he can hear you.
Okay. Well, we can hear him.
So in beliefs, it's in your mind, it's your thoughts, your vision. That's also included under beliefs. Your values are, it says, meaningful and important. And these are your conscience and your feelings. And in the center, we haven't gotten there yet. But do you agree that your behaviors come from your beliefs, and what you believe dictates how you behave?
Yeah.
Okay. And your beliefs come from your values. Whatever you most value, what is most meaningful to you, creates your beliefs.
Yep.
Okay, so where do your values come from? Most people think our values come from our family, or what's called our tribe. But have you ever seen two people from the same family with totally different values?
Absolutely.
Yes, especially if you have siblings and they aren't anything like you or very little like you. Most people do say that they come from family, school, religion, environment, church, but notice that all the things that I'm mentioning are located outside of us and not inside of us. So what we know about the people that we just talked about, the heroes, is that they were living from alignment with something that was inside of them. So if our values are dictated by something inside of you, which is your heart virtue, isn't that important to know? Because if you know what the heart virtue is, then you'll understand things on a different level. So the next diagram just has the heart virtue in it. And the heart virtue is something so meaningful that you would be willing to die for it. Now the reason why people don't know their heart virtues is because it's a blind spot. And it's a blind spot because it was cultured out of us. When we were born into our family, We were born with the spiritual DNA, but things were trained out of us. Remember, as young children, especially the 2-year-olds, you know, the word that they kept hearing all the time was no, 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 no. So here's a 2-year-old that's living in your home, excited about life, trying new things, taking risks, laughing, doing things, and all of a sudden they hear no. The 2-year-old doesn't know or can't say, excuse me, I realize you have your own belief system. I've got mine, and frankly, I'm having more fun than you, so why don't you back off and you might learn something. So instead, the 2-year-old fits in, and they fold themselves in and say, oh God, what's wrong with me? And that's why we develop blind spot about our heart virtue, because it is so painful to know what is meaningful and not be able to go after it, that you would rather not know what is meaningful to you. So they live with the confines of outside. So instead of the inside-outside diagram, they're living outside in. So to conform to society and to conform to their relationship or whatever, they want to be safe, they want to be peaceful. This is the 2-year-old, but this is you as an adult. So what is most meaningful to you is sacrifice to others, and you live in a comfort zone. So if you're always trying to find and make people happy on the outside, what you're creating is that you aren't creating anything for you, you're protecting yourself essentially. So here's a diagram of the comfort zone. If I were to ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, and I am asking you, 0 being suicidal and 10 being I love my life, where would you rate your life right now?
I love my life.
Great.
So is that a 10?
I love my life, but it would be an 8.
Okay. Anybody else willing to share?
Mine will be 7 or 8.
Okay.
This is John. I said 8.
Okay. Well, most people say about a 7, so you aren't too far off. That's the normal answer. You might say a 4, but that would be low. And if you're a 2, then you probably are feeling that, gosh, my life's really bad. And what's going to happen? So what happens is the normal is, like you can see right in this 7 range, is that as long as you're in that comfort zone and you're so-called normal, your friends, your family, everybody loves it because you're where they are. And if you dip down into the miserable zone, people are trying to build you up and bring you back up to the 7 because they are sympathetic or empathetic and don't want you feeling miserable. But on the other hand, if you're feeling great, people will also try and bring you back down into the comfort zone. And they might do that by saying, you know, are you really sure you want to do that? And do you have enough money to do what you want to do? Have you ever done this before? Have you ever heard those comments from family members or friends?
Oh, yes.
So what you thought was an amazing project yourself, all of a sudden you're questioning whether it's, you know, amazing or whatever. So in other words, they try and pull you down. So if we can identify your heart virtue and step out of that mediocrity zone, the okay zone, what we would have to do is to take an inventory of the most meaningful and beautiful moments of your life. I'm just bringing the slide down just a second. And what gets you out of your comfort zone? There are different things that get you out of your comfort zone. One of them is goosebumps moments. Have you ever sat in a movie theater and been watching a movie and thought, oh my God, that's so beautiful and meaning, that's the way my life should be? Well, that's sort of like a goosebump moment. A rush of love, comes up through your body. You might have tears running down your cheeks. You might have goosebumps on your arms. The picture on the screen just totally overwhelms you. I'm just going to ask Cynthia now to share a little bit of a story with you about in a goosebumps moments that she experienced.
This is an incredible story, guys.
So you're speaking of how, we feel when we're experiencing movies and stuff. When my kids were little, they were probably around 7 and 8, my boys, and we would always have like a little movie night that we'd all curl up together and relax and watch these movies. And one of the movies we were watching one night was, just forgetting what the name of the movie is now.
Meet Joe Black.
Meet Joe Black. Meet Joe Black, yes. And it was about, Brad Pitt came back as Death, and he was having an experience in life, which I absolutely love this movie. And I don't remember the actress that he was playing with, but they were having their scene where they were coming together, and Death was experiencing what it was to love and be in that passion with a woman. And it was really well done because it wasn't any, showing body parts or anything like that, or being explicit or anything. But it was a very, just that whole emotion and that passion and that love was really developing right in front of our eyes when we were watching this. And all of a sudden, one of my sons jumps up and he pulls down his pants and he goes, "Oh my God, my penis is frozen." And my other son jumps up and goes, "Mine too! Mom, how come this is happening?" Here I am, there's a mom. I'm trying to explain to him them, how they feel, kind of reacts, and we have these things that happen to us. They're kind of like goosebumps. But so it was just the most. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? But to know that they were feeling that emotion and that passion and everything that was going on, and at that age, because that was the first time that they ever had that experience with themselves, and so it was that in that timing, and it was the first time that ever I had that experience with my son. So, it was one of those awe and wonder times where you could just laugh with one another, and it just brings back such funny memories for me. And certainly if my boys knew I was sharing this with you all, they would be horrified. But, but those kind of things in our lives definitely gives us, goosebumps, emotional feelings, things that really create reaction within ourselves, or reaction, or causes us to take action or respond in certain ways. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. The reason that scene basically, or any scene, movie scene like that, it basically overwhelms us is because the theme in the scene is so directly in alignment with the theme of our heart virtue. So what if we were to take an inventory of different goosebump moments? Movies, books, human beings that you admire. If we take an inventory, what we would see is a theme running through them. And this theme would be your heart virtue. There's a second experience, which is on the screen, rage, it says, that is as powerful and as profound and completely unavailable for manipulation. Have you ever been so angry that it surprised you that you got so angry?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever said things you wish you hadn't said? Haven't we all? Or you've done things that you wish you hadn't done.
Yes.
Yeah. Everyone has had that experience. When you are enraged, you're angry, and if you weren't committed to something, such as your heart virtue, you wouldn't become angry. But it's because you're feeling either blocked or violated that you experience the rage moment. And people that we have problems with, yes?
I just want to come in because you were talking about, the anger and all those things and feeling. And I think it's really important for everybody to know, as far as no feeling, no healing, it is so important for us to feel. And being a heart virtue, your heart's is we feel first before we think. And I'll share a lot about that later, but what you're coming into is a lot of people are afraid to be angry too. They come into, oh my God, that's so horrible for me to do that. But it is important for us to share and feel what we're feeling and to let that out. Otherwise, we're causing depression and suppressing everything. So I just want to add that in.
No, I appreciate that. So what will happen, not today, but will be that there'll be an assessment of both the goosebumps and the rage moments in your life. And then the themes and everything will be fine-tuned through a process so that you'll know what your heart virtue is. Because when your heart virtue is being fulfilled, you feel goosebumps. And when it is being violated, you become enraged. And if we know that about ourselves, then when we react or act, or see how other people act or react, we realize that their heart virtue is being either violated, or if they're having great moments, then their heart virtue is being extolled. Heart virtue is spiritual DNA. It doesn't change every day. Usually your heart virtue is the heart virtue that you have for life. You might tweak it just a little bit, but essentially your heart virtue is your heart virtue. And what you do is you can design activities and projects that fulfill your heart virtue. So here's the next diagram. So just review. So we have goosebumps and rage experiences. One, no, I cannot stand by and watch that. And there's some intolerance, anger, and rage. And on the other side, yes, that's the way I want my life to be. And it's inspiration, it's goosebumps, it's a rush of love. So we have a heart virtue that is dictating our values, beliefs, and behaviors from the inside out. It's not from the outside in. We know that there's a blind spot, and we don't know our heart virtue unless we have heart virtue work because of the tribes or the families that we were born into and the cultures that we lived in. And if we take an inventory of these moments, we will be able to identify heart virtues. And everybody can get their heart virtues. To get the heart virtues is that we have another nervous system. And some people probably know this. We know that our brain's objective is for survival and safety, to be reasonable, to fit in, to avoid taking risks, facing fears. We know the heart's objective is to have meaningful, fulfilling experiences, evolution, contribution, self-actualization, have courage to take risks. Neurocardiologists have found that most of the cells of the heart are actually neural cells, not muscle cells as was previously believed. They are identical to the neural cells in the brain, operating through the same connecting links called ganglia, with the same axonal and dendritic connections that take place in the brain, as well as through the very same kinds of neurotransmitters found in the brain. Quite literally, in other words, there's a brain in the heart. And what I just quoted to you, what I just read to you, was something that all heart virtue experts have to read during the presentation. Not only do we have a brain in our heart, but we also have it in our lungs, kidneys, liver, stomach, and intestines. How many of you have had an instinct? And if I asked you where your instinct came from, a lot of people would point to their belly. So we probably have more brain tissue or nerve tissue from the neck down than from the neck up. And this is our second nervous system. It communicates through blood and through energy fields. You know how people say follow your heart. Literally you can, and it makes sense. I think Cynthia would like to add some more about the heart.
Quick question.
Here.
Does that relate to,
Sure.
sorry, does that relate to the chakra system?
I think some of the energies go out through the chakra system. So yes, I would say yes.
Thank you.
But it's totally throughout the whole body.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, the chakra system is you know, a whole another realm of energy that's
Yes.
within us that, you know, flows in integrating and unity with the rest of our energy bodies. Well, speaking of the heart, because I love that you brought up the information about the neurological brain cells that are in the heart and also through the rest of the body, but also to know that the first cell upon your conception is the heart cell. And I had I was telling a veterinarian this one day, and he said to me, he goes, no, it's not, it's the embryo. But embryo is made of the first cells of a human embryo are heart cells. So that's really important to know, I think, because sometimes, especially when we're coming from a place of our training and our logic within what we've learned, the first thing that we want to say is what we had known at one time was just about the embryo. But now they know that the first cells of the human embryo are heart cells. And then from the heart cells, we grow, we see the heart organ is next that's created. And then that heart is pumping. So when we're listening to see if there's a baby, you know, inside the womb, it's the heart that we hear. And the heart frequency, the heartbeat, is the signature sound of you. So our blueprint of who we are is in that, in the cell, in the that membrane where our blueprint is. It's kind of like the same thing as the mustard seed. Everything can come from that blueprint and grow into incredible things, wondrous things. And so just to know how much what our hearts, where it all begins, is really important to who we are, that it all begins in the heart. So your heart virtues that Sarah has been speaking of, so powerful, of the frequencies that are coming from our heart and even our heartbeat, and what we're letting in and what we're putting out. Because the heart is 60 times more magnified than any parts of our body. And the heart also is 5,000 times more electromagnetic than any parts of our bodies. So the heart is adaptable and powerful, and the heart will magnify anything you place in it. So that's really important to continue on with learning more about the heart virtues. Knowing that, I think, will help you know yourself more, so that you can take in and learn more about yourself with your heart virtues and how they're going to really help you move forward. So, Sarah, I hope that helped you out.
Yes, that did. And I just wanted...
Yeah, a quick question, too. So, given the importance that your heart plays in your body, how does that translate to the business that everyone here is building?
Well, your heart is critical to your success in business because success comes through the heart, and a lot of times, you know, it's also defining what success means to you. I remember when I was going through all my changes, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years, and I had to, at my age, had to call my mother to borrow some money to keep myself and sustain myself for a little while till I got myself back on the ground. And I remember her saying to me, well, maybe one of these days you'll be successful. Well, in the past, the reason why I probably wasn't very successful was because I didn't honor and value myself and what I was here to be. And in that moment when my mom said that, I had been going through a great amount of growth with myself. And I realized that all my life I've wanted to be validated and accepted, and especially from my mother. And in that moment when she said that to me, I probably in the past would have gotten very angry and never talked to her again. But instead, something came over me. My heart was just had been opening up, and I had been realizing who I was. And I just said to my mom, I am successful. I make a difference in people's lives. That's what success was to me. I had to really acknowledge what that was. So any of us that were moving into our businesses and knowing who we are and going into our hearts and knowing what motivates us, and actually love is what motivates humanity, period. Everything we do. You know, love and the exchange of our what we're giving from our businesses. In every exchange, love is the element and energy and willingness which allows it all to happen. There's no true exchange without love. And so that's why that is so important, to knowing your heart and these heart virtues and how it's going to affect your business. Because if you're not feeling successful with inside you, or you value who you are, or any of those things, you're going to have a difficult time in your business.
The world's going to have a difficult time, such as some people could say it is now, right now.
Yeah.
I have to do a takeaway in the middle of your thing. I'm sorry, because
That's okay.
It's too much. I don't think I'm going to be able to hold on to this to the end, but because I'll have more to say at the end too. But I started writing when you guys were talking about this stuff, and I wrote processes are processes and systems are systems, and by themselves they're heartless. So, and what I mean by that is without people using their using them from the perspective of their heart virtue, of their real purpose, then it's easy to see why problems exist as they do in the world today. We can talk about it in a micro, such as our businesses, or we can talk about it in the macro, such as the entire system of humanity and everything else all around the globe. It's all the same thing. It's like a fractal. So that's why some people say capitalism is bad, or some people say socialism is bad. They're both systems that exist and there are actors in those systems that exist only insofar as pushing the buttons of that system or following the system without regard for the heart virtues, which allow for actual valuable service to be performed within those systems. So while everybody's arguing about whether one way or another way is a good way or a bad way, I think maybe the point is being missed. The real point is that, are you acting within that system? You're just doing what you've been told. You're just following orders. You're just doing the cutthroat Darwinism of capitalism the way it was told in a book without accessing your heart virtue and making decisions within that system that would also actually help everyone around you while you're being of service, while you're performing or you know, fulfilling a product order or whatever. Does that product that you've created, if it's got your heart virtue attached to it, if it's got that thinking and your purpose behind it, then it will obviously be of service and of real value without all of the damaging side effects of people just acting without their hearts through these systems. Therefore, is one system good or bad or the other? They all have their pluses. And if somebody's acting within this mindset, in this frame of mind, everything that you do, then every system on the planet could be improved, and people could start pointing out the really good things about them. So that's what occurred to me so far. And that's just big thinking, but it's also, you could just take some of those words, switch them around, and just talk about you in your part of the world with your business and how you're performing service for others.
Well, and
the cool thing about what you just said, Jack, is if each one of us simply takes a system that is already successful, like the system all of you are learning here at CU, and you infuse your own unique heart virtue into it, what it creates is always unique because it's based on your heart virtue and not that flat system that it was infused into.
And it's going to be unique in the in the world just because it's got something that we don't expect anymore to see from a typical business.
Yes.
You know, a typical business is we always have to approach everything in this society the way people feel today with caution. I always romanticize and feel like the 50s were different, that you just walk into a store and you know that barber is going to take care of you. He's not going to try to put one over on you or anything. That's the vision I have of it. I know it's pie in the sky and things, but I know that it also more of that existed than does now. And we have this feeling of adversarial relationship right off the bat. Like, don't go in there and talk to that person about this thing. You'll end up with a car you don't need or a thing you don't want, or you know, and it just doesn't feel right. That's when my negative thing goes up, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This shouldn't be this way. And then I walk away, and whenever somebody impresses me in the other way, they make me feel welcome. They build a rapport. They come in from this heart virtue. You can tell right away. It resonates right away. And you not only feel good about your decision in doing business with them, you feel good about the world, that there are people in it that it can be possible, and it proves to you that you can run your business in your life in that way too. That it's not just an idea, but you guys can all pull from probably scant but still good evidence that there are people, that there is a way to do this, and it's growing all the time. I feel like the world, there are groups and groups of groups forming all over the world that are starting to get this. And I'm starting to see inklings of it in businesses we wouldn't expect. Like our businesses, of course, but other things that are more mainstream, I'm starting to see little signs of it there too. And it's filled me with lots of hope.
Yeah. May I just add two more things, actually, that go along with all that we're saying here. And it's about, you know, I say change your value by changing what you value. And this is what I think Jack is talking about. And so you may think that you are exchanging merchandise for money, but what you are really exchanging is love. The gold mine can only be found in the innocence of your heart. And, you know, and Jack spoke of something about process. You know, the heart is the center of the true source of human power. So, you know, love is a power, not a process. And this is what a lot of people are always looking at love being a process. It's about a process, about how your relationship is working and this and that. But love is actually the power that's within your heart that, yes, absolutely motivates us to do what we do, to be the business that we are, to be the life we love. Yeah. And that's where it all comes from, that core of the heart. And those heart virtues that you guys are speaking of is, you know, when I spoke about the heartbeat, is a signature sound of you. Your virtues, when you find out what your heart virtue is, that's the frequency that you're going to be giving out to the world. That's what you're, you know, exchanging. And you're going to be receiving that back, with the heart being 60 times more amplified. So you're amplifying your heart virtues. And what you get back, you know, 5,000 times more electromagnetic, 100 times, or right around there, is coming back at you, that you're magnetizing right back at you from what you put out. So as Sarah was saying earlier, you know, it starts inside out.
Frederick Lehrman teaches money mindset, and it's L-E-H-R-M-A-N. Go look up Frederick Lehrman. in his teaching, money is an expression of gratitude. In business, what that translates to is you making money should really mean that your customers are simply expressing gratitude for what you're providing to them. So go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, it's fantastic. I've loved the discussion, listening to the discussion. Cynthia, I just wanted to bring back once about the chakra system. I think where I was coming from was the spiritual DNA that's in the chakra system also, and that sometimes people get blocks if they aren't living through their heart virtue. So that was my comment on the chakra system, but I appreciated yours too. So the heart is for meaningful, fulfilling experiences, about living, taking risks, making fulfilling contributions, passion, aliveness, what is meaningful at the moment, so that you can become a compelling and magnetic, which we just talked about, human being. So there are two ways to empowerment. So I don't think I have a diagram of this, but I'll just, not yet. But if we look back at the circle that we talked about initially, and I'll go back up to it just to, if you live from the outside in, what you're trying to do is fix the problem. Your brain is trying to be reasonable. You're trying to survive, take no risks. You might be fearful. You might be resisting what's in your life. You're fighting disease if you happen to have a disease. You're in competition because you don't feel like you have enough, that you have to get more. There's an expectation that you do it right or you do it correct. And you focus on results and fitting in. But if we use the inside-out approach to empowerment, we're going from a meaningful heart, a hero that takes risks, an excitement and about embracing life, living and learning new things, a new lifestyle, creativity, we're learning to create new ways of doing things. We're anticipating what's going on in our lives. We want to have fun and be happy. We focus on the experience, and through that we can be authentic. So, would you rather have a reasonable life or a meaningful life? For most people who are living a really fulfilling life, their heart is their compass for life, not their brain. Do you remember, I'm going to just go down on the slides, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the lowest level was survival or physical needs. Then we had safety, security, social belonging, self-esteem, and at the top was self-actualization. And self-actualization was defined as the achievement of one's full potential through creativity, independence, spontaneity, and a grasp of the real world. And that comes from understanding your heart virtue. And this would be living at a 10, at the self-actualization. So let's tie all the pictures that I've shown you together. So the outside in, which is the one, it'd be that you modify your behaviors by reasoning with yourself and your brain, and so that you fit in at the okay level and you survive. Whereas inside out means that you've identified what is most meaningful to you. You're living from your heart, in your heart. You've got goosebump moments going on, or rage moments, and you end up at a place of self-actualization. So in doing the heart virtue assessment, it's to start identifying what's most meaningful to you and living in your heart. What gives you goosebumps and rage? That's the magic window. So what I'm offering you is an inventory of goosebumps and figuring out what your heart virtue is so that you can become more self-actualized. And what I'm offering this program is a discount on the usual program at it's http spiritualcoachingforyou.com/heartvirtue, which I'll put it in the window, / because there's a hyphen between the heart virtue, but I'll put it in the window so everybody has it in just a minute. Usually the whole cost and the education costs around $500, but today I'm offering it to people that listen to this recording for a price of $247. And what you'll get is to go through the process and of goosebump moments in your life and rage moments in your life to end up so that you'll know what your heart virtue is, so that you can live from your heart virtue. And by living from your heart virtue in your business, in your life, it will improve your relationships, your life. My heart virtue, which I told you, was I am committed to passion, intimacy, and aliveness. And some of you know and some of you don't know that in 2005 I lost 5 people in my life and my dog, and 2 of the people were my husband and my mother. And I didn't have my heart virtue then. But at the time, I was just so miserable and so depressed and grieving so much. And when I found out what my heart virtue was, what I realized was the reason why I was down in the very low level was because my commitment to passion, intimacy, and aliveness was being affected at that time, and I wasn't truly able to live from my heart. So with healing and knowing my heart virtue and knowing what's important to me, I live every day with passion, intimacy, and aliveness in all my relationships. Any questions?
I have a kind of an observation. I know that Gina and you just worked together recently, and she won't shut up about it. And I don't know what exactly it was that you did together exactly, because I haven't experienced it, but she described it to me, and she's just over the moon about it. So I do have that feedback, and I know Gina has her own version of it. I'll just tell you from my experience, when Gina comes back that excited from doing anything or learning something new, that it is indeed as profound as it sounds. And so thanks for working on Gina.
Well, Jack, let me put it this way. When I discovered my heart virtue, it was at a workshop that I paid $8,000 to be at. And it made the entire investment in that workshop so worthwhile. So to be able to have Sarah right here in our community be able to really facilitate the heart virtues process for people and it not to cost $8,000, holy cow.
So here this would be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I don't know if it's interesting to anybody else, but it would be like so heart virtue. So you do this stuff. And this is how you make your living. Part of how you make your living. And so I think it'd be neat to hear you describe how your business is different, how you're carrying forth and being of service to others, and doing that in conjunction and completely because of or from your heart virtue, as opposed to somebody who's out there. Not saying that this is bad, but they're like an affiliate marketer and they sell products. But that's what they do. That's the whole substance. They've just told you everything about their business. There is no more. They're an affiliate and they sell products. So like, what's the difference between the two from your perspective in your business?
Well, number one, I feel that because I knew my heart virtue and I've been a spiritual seeker, and so in 2010, I think it was after I had cancer. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor. I was on an island off the coast of Maine and got a download from God, whether or not, hopefully people will believe in this community, but I got a message to take pictures, and to take pictures and pictures and pictures, especially around the concept of spaces. So what I've done and what I've been working on is taking those pictures so that I can share them with the world, but I learned that that was my passion and that was my purpose, and it was because of my commitment because I'm committed to passion, intimacy, and aliveness, that I realized that if I could bring from my heart this concept that I feel is my purpose in life, is that I serve others. I love others. I serve others. I embrace others. And that's a different standpoint from when I was a nurse manager. Yes, I was serving others, but I was serving others in a system.
A very different way.
In a system, and I was, in a system, and it was different, and, there were rules and laws and regulations and all that, whereas living from my heart, I can really create and have the business that I want, and I can really be present with people and share who I am. And I think that's the biggest difference, is that I trust my heart, and then I have to train my brain, I guess. But as I was explaining to Jack and Alana, was that I don't have mind chatter going on in my head. All my life I had mind chatter, and I lost it since 2005. And the energy that saves me is unbelievable, not to have my mind chattering at me. To have an open mind that's present, expanded, just opens up so many possibilities and opportunities to me. And it's not that I never have fear, because if I see fear, and some people can attest to this, what I usually say is, no, that's not fear. I'm not fearful. That's excitement. So I embrace life a totally different way because of my heart virtue and because of the way I feel about my business and the way that I serve others. In the way I look at life.
Cynthia, I bet you've got something to add about how different your business is now that you know that you are committed to love.
Oh, yeah. Life is so peaceful, and even though each day I go through a new process, using the power of love, I don't worry anymore, and I just did a class on worry. That's been eliminated. Worry is probably the #1 thing that stresses everybody out. Fear comes only occasionally. Worry is consistent most of the time for people. So getting into my heart and knowing who I am allows me to be at peace with time also, and I don't give myself a hard time for not having something done, in a certain way or whatever. What gets done is what is needing to get done, and in its own divine timing. So I kind of surrender to the will of God, is what I say. And I will, thy will, and just allow things to, for me to be who I am. And it has changed the way I present myself to the world, my own truth, standing in my truth. It helped me become who I am and to stand in my truth. And that way I can communicate more easily with people, because communication is the biggest part of doing business with people. And when we're communicating from our hearts, we get back from others that same experience. They feel your heart. I feel their heart. We connect in our hearts, and we know what the truth is. And therefore, business is done in a way where the connection is made in a whole different way, and just in a higher consciousness way. So I don't know, it might sound like I'm talking around in circles. This question is something I've been thinking about a lot, about how I'm experiencing life these days and the work that I'm doing. And I believe it is what I'm here to do and what I'm here to be. And a lot of us don't find that until, as Sarah was talking about from the very beginning, what are the things that we say on our deathbed that we wish we had done, and that leave that legacy, and to make a difference in this world, to have an adventure. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm being the life I love, and so is my business right now.
And I can tell after the JV Summit, or during the JV Summit, I could tell one of the things I mean by you are an incredible group of people is that when I stand next to you guys, most notably you, I know would be like this, and also when Cecil and Sarah, it's just, I found myself wanting to not even have anything to say, just stand next to you guys. Because there's something emanating from you guys that doesn't typically emanate from other people. I don't know how to say, but there's like, I was always making fun of Cecil through the whole thing. It's like, why does everybody want to touch you? Everybody just wants to touch you. And they're always putting their arm around him or patting him on the back, or when they come up to him, they put their hand on his shoulder, and they really physically need to touch him. And it's not just me. It's just, it's like we're rubbing a lucky thing, or we're, you know what I mean? It's like there's something that comes out of certain people who are rooted and grounded in this type of an idea and in their business and in the way that they carry themselves. You can't separate it and say it's for their business. It's people's lives. And that's why I think some people who are thinking they come to things like this for their business, and it's like, what are you guys talking about? You haven't even talked about a landing page yet. What the heck? And it's because you can't separate it out. It's your personal completely affects your business. Which is pretty well established here. But it's also that people who have gotten this down or are further along on the journey, or however is best to say that, I get a different vibe from. I really, it's just dripping off of some people. And Sarah's one of those people, and Cecil, and I'm sure Cynthia, you are too. When we get to meet, it'll be the same thing. And so there's something about that. If you are doing business and you're asking to be of service to someone else, and they have to pick up on that. And whether they do it consciously or not, I think my newfound skill, superpower, is picking up on it consciously. Other people just go, they don't know why. They got to reach out and touch you on the shoulder when they see you, but they do. It doesn't take away the fact that that happens and needs to happen. So whether they know it or not, I think if you're carrying yourself forth in your business and in the world the way that you do, the way that, in that manner, it's good for business, it's good for personal, and it makes people want to work with you. And then there's just millions of other things that come out of that, but that physical part of it, that sense that you get when you're around someone who's who's been thinking about these things and working on these things and being made aware of these things more, you can tell when you're in the presence of such a person. If that's someone you're looking to do business with, it makes you extraordinarily comfortable working with someone like that. And it's an innate sense, like a wolf could pick up, out of a crowd of 10,000 caribou, the one that's just a little gimpy, just a little sick, and needs to be the one that gets culled from the herd so that those genetic traits don't get passed to the next generation of caribou, and also feeds the wolf's pups. It's that innateness. They can do that without even thinking about it and without even knowing that they're doing it.
It was interesting.
From the amplification of the heart.
Yeah. It's interesting because it doesn't happen very often, but oftentimes when you do reach out with your heart and you go to embrace somebody, because I tend to be a hugger, and sometimes you just happen to go into somebody's space and they're a little uncomfortable when you're coming from so much love in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. May I share? Since you're bringing that story up about love, the love in our hearts, feeling your customers is so important. And when we get into our hearts, in our heart virtues, that's what happens. But recently, I started getting to know my neighbors, And there was a neighbor that I saw him out by himself all the time walking, an older gentleman. And I came home one day, and when I drove by him, I stopped to have a conversation and introduce myself to him. And so we met, and he had these tears in his eyes because he was telling me that his wife just was no longer there with him. She had Alzheimer's and had gone into a home, and he had to start visiting her and everything. And so he had these tears in his eyes, and as I drove off, I could see him pull out a handkerchief and, dry up his face and everything. And I just my heart just felt him. So the next day, I had to go into town, and when I was there, it was on St. Patty's Day, and I picked up one of those shamrock plants with the flowers that bloom out, because I was thinking of him. So when I came home that day, I called my neighbor and asked, if I should just go on up there to his house, because I wanted to bring him this little shamrock, because I was just thinking of him. And I wrote him a little card that he, stole my heart, and I just really wanted to, if he ever wanted a partner to walk with or anything, I was there. So my neighbors told me, if his gate's closed, he's home, just go on up there. So I did, and then I brought the plant to him, and I gave him the card, and we had a wonderful conversation. Well, the next day, again, I had been running errands and was coming back, and he was down walking, and I pulled over to talk to him, and he leans over and he says to me, he goes, before anything happens here, he goes, I want you to know that I'm 90 years old and I'm still married. And I know you live down the road from me, that you're living with your boyfriend, so we can only be friends. And I looked at him because he thought I wanted to have an affair with him. And I said to him, he goes, well, after I read your card, I just wanted to let you know we can only be friends. And I said, that's no problem. I said, I just want you to know my business is called the Center for Loving Consciousness. It's just how I express myself. I said, when I met you, my heart went out to you, and I just felt your heart. And what I wrote on the card was, you captured my heart. Please call me if you ever want to go for a walk or get together. And I gave him my phone number.
Yeah, well, that's what the old-timey folks used to say
man,
in love letters. That's a letter from Vietnam to a wife back home. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Cynthia, that's too funny. What a story.
I'm 90 and I'm married, so this can go.
And
so that's what our heart.
What is that about the love you radiate?
Yeah.
And,
well, that's about
this whole idea
of to know what the heart is. Yeah.
This
Go
whole
ahead,
idea
Gina.
of love and your heart virtue, it plays such a huge, huge role in your business. Those people who are in the Directions U Bachelor's program, I love them as if they were my own children. Yes, I didn't give birth to them, but I really don't treat you guys like you're my customers. I treat you like you're my children.
Mm-hmm.
When you can love your customers like they are your own family, can you imagine how much different your business becomes?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
If you think about the big brands that we all do business with, the Procter & Gamble's, the 3M's, the Microsofts, the Nikes, I highly doubt there's someone sitting in a golden office loving every customer. They love the money they get from the customers, but they don't even think about the customers for the most part. What sets really, really solid brands apart from the rest of their competition is that they don't just love the money. They really do love their customers, even if they don't know who they are.
And that takes to heart Jack's point of keeping Richard Branson in front of us. I think he's the example of what you just spoke about.
Yeah.
Exactly, Lynn. Exactly. And if you build your business from that mindset from the start, it can't help but succeed. It can't ever fail. As Cynthia has already told us, our heart amplifies the energy, the electromagnetic frequency. How many times over, Cynthia?
5,000, well, 100 times more, 5,000 times more amplified.
So can you imagine what that will attract? Right, Cynthia?
Oh, I apologize. We're 60 times more amplified and 5,000 times more electromagnetic. The magnetic, it comes back to us 100 times more. What we put out, we get back 100 times more.
Holy cow. Huge implications in your business,
huge.
guys. Huge. Huge. And Sarah, I have to thank you
and like I said
so
before,
much. Go ahead.
Yeah, the heart, like I said earlier, you know, the heart will magnify anything you place in it. So really, like when she's talking about heart virtues, to figure out what your heart virtues are, putting those virtues in your heart and them being a part of who you are, you're magnifying that out into the world. And what comes back is that 100 times more comes back in those virtues.
Absolutely. And so I have to thank you so much for agreeing to facilitate this workshop for everybody at such a tremendous discount. Did you go over the price and what's going to happen with this for everyone?
I did say that it's going to be $247 for everybody that is on the call or that listens to the call.
Or that comes in through the live workshop April 10th and 11th.
Yes.
This workshop will continue to be sold in its recorded format later on. And for those of you that don't get in this initial round of the live workshop, it is $497. You can find it at www.askggg.com/heart virtue. Heart virtue. I asked Sarah to do that to make it as affordable as possible for all of you, because this is a program that I really want to support on an ongoing basis. Both people coming into the Motivation to Profit membership, people coming into this workshop, people coming into the bachelor's program. It is so important that you really get in touch with your heart virtue early on, before you sit down and build your entire strategic plan, because it really will change everything about your plan. It can make such a difference in what you choose to sell. It can make an even bigger difference in how you choose to drive your traffic, the kinds of joint ventures you choose to put into place in your business. All of it could look very, very different once you know what it is that you're committed to. So I encourage every one of you to go get signed up right now for the Heart Virtue Life Camp coming up soon for $247 at askggg.com/heart virtue. Sarah, do you know the format of that or when it's going to be yet?
No.
Okay. So once you get registered,
it'll be by
in touch via email. Yeah. I would think it's going to be after the workshop, right? Not before.
That would make sense. Yes.
Yeah, that would make sense to me too. I will be helping Sarah and Cynthia to put that workshop to get the life camp together for you guys. So I'll probably help her facilitate it if necessary, because I really, really, really am committed to helping all of you find your heart virtue. And I really want to help Sarah get this out to the world. It used to be that Greg Morse, the founder and creator of Heart Virtues, actually had a program that other people could go through to become certified facilitators like Sarah. And back then, Greg really did a lot to get workshops set up for for his facilitators. Greg isn't continuing to do it at the level he used to these days. So it's taken me a little over 3 years to find someone that could facilitate a Heart Virtues workshop for my people. How that ended up showing up in my life is simply a matter of mindset. It's such a perfect example of mindset, isn't it, Sarah?
It sure is.
I didn't really have to go out looking. Sarah just one day shows up and, oh my goodness, I find out she's a Heart Virtues facilitator. Holy cow. And Jim says that he has been through the Heart Virtue training, and it was very revealing to him and a very worthy investment. Jim, can you tell me what your Heart Virtue is, having been through that process? Can't wait to hear his Heart Virtue.
Yes.
So we do have some time left today. Before we do takeaways, because we got, an hour, hour and a half yet. Before we do takeaways, I really want to get some feedback from you guys on what it is you really want to learn about mindset. Whether we can talk about it right now, whether we can make sure that we cover it on April 10th and 11th. What are your biggest questions about mindset or any component of mindset? Anybody?
Gina, I am huge. This is Lynn. I am just very huge on the whole mindset thing because after living more than half of my life, it became a realization that a lot of the things that happened to me were because of belief systems. And what I learned to do was to not say that they were right or wrong, but rather to identify really where they came from, why I might have adopted them, and I think that was the beginning of my opening my heart. I learned from a more scientific standpoint because of my heart and wanting to guard my heart how to be successful. And it was kind of one day, all of the left brain stuff that I was doing that had helped me to gain such huge successes in my life was starting to disintegrate. And it wasn't until I realized the strength of allowing myself, giving myself permission to open my heart, that I even realized that I could do a business. Now, I didn't understand this to the degree that I do now, but when I think about what my tagline has been since the inception of my business, empowering individuals and businesses to succeed, that, as I identified more with the Skyhawk, it grew to empowering individuals and businesses to soar and bringing in that energy of the hawk and just the expansiveness of the possibilities. I had had such wonderful things to happen, and moving even deeper into that and having over the past, I'd say 6 months, more conversations with people who have been in heart conversation, that has allowed me to really see the expansion of my heart and what that has done for me and my business. I don't know what I would have done having lost my son and having a business, having to just shut it down, and knowing that there were clients I had been working with that said, do what you need to do to heal and come back, we still need you. That was because of the heart that I had given to them. Because otherwise they would have found somebody else who could have done what I was doing and better. And I realized that after the fact. And you even mentioned it about, Sarah showing up for you like Andrea and Trish and DU, and you guys showed up for me. So I know the power. I've personally experienced and can now articulate it better in my conversations about the work that I do, because hearing Sarah and Cynthia and you guys go through this, I've been able to expand my heart virtue to something more in the realm of I empower individuals and businesses to soar, and I do it from a place of being authentically present, passionate, intimate, and enthusiastically alive every day of my life. And thank you, Sarah, because I stole a lot of your stuff to add to mine.
That's okay.
I feel that. I feel that is the energy of me, and it is who I want to be today and every tomorrow that I have. And the enthusiastically alive is really because of the people so close to me that I've lost. And, you know, I was telling someone earlier today, one of my clients that I'm not getting paid for, but, you know, the reason I do the work that I do with such passion now, and I didn't even realize it before saying it, was because of the impact of losing my dad at age 7 had on my life, that losing my son, who was actually the person that I wanted to be, and he saw himself being me, a single father with kids. And so it's all shaping up and coming into a place for me that I am standing on so much firmer a foundation of self. And I just want to say thank you to this community. I see so many, and I'm a seer too, I see so many good, big, powerful things happening for those in this group and coming into this group. If they see enough to come in, oh, wow.
Well, you know, one of the things that you just shared that I really want to make sure everybody noticed is that even if you've not studied mindset a whole lot, it doesn't take a huge instance of mindset showing up before you become a firm believer in its power, right, Lynn?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, to add to that, I've always been a spiritual person. I've always believed that, you know, I had angels that I could call on. But that was what Sarah talked about, the outside of me. I believed in my connection with God, and, you know, it's grown stronger over time. However, that was still something outside of me. What I realized is, and thank you, Cynthia, because the heart being the first real piece of us, I, you know, experienced having a heart as a kid, as a smaller kid, and locking it up. And still considering myself to be spiritual, all that was outside of me. And until really tapping into the power of the heart, did a lot of other things come to realization.
That's beautiful. Really beautiful.
I have something a little bit different that I would like to put out there to possibly be some part of the discussion, because I think it's a really big deal. It is for me. It always has been for me. And it was just this year that I realized that it was possible to both want something, desire something, and subconsciously actively work against getting it. I didn't know that was possible, that you could ask for it, but then you could also be sabotaging yourself with programming that you had that you are also just realizing that you've had. and I'm really interested in the topic both for myself, because I know that a lot of people ask about this in other formats, other places, but while we're doing this business building stuff, while we're considering that part of our abundance and where our abundance, you know, emanates, it originates from, and part of abundance being money, and almost the in certain contexts, like we're dealing with such a precious subject right here, my programming almost makes me feel like it's dirtying it by talking about money. Though I also know that Esther and Abraham and those guys are always saying it's just a tool. I know on a conceptual level that it is a tool, that it is all it is, and that the emotional values that I've attached to it come from programming very specifically my mom, really just distrusted people who were wealthy. And that got passed on to me, and what got caught up in that is I also equated just having abundance as having some sort of an ick factor. Not that the people behind it, it should have all been focused on the people behind it just not being the best people they could possibly be. I also attached abundance, money, wealth, success with a lot of that, or with that. So now I've got this lifelong goal, which I'm going to knock it out very soon, but it's also very helpful for me to always get everybody's feedback on wherever they are on the growth line for this particular issue of disassociating. You know, people who have broken trusts and taken advantage or whatever they've done, disassociating them and that with abundance, just because they were also had an abundance in money or some sort of perceived success level that they'd achieved, so that I'm not hurting myself continually going forward with my own success and associating things that are completely benign with a negative attitude. And I don't know if I said that right or not, but I would love to explore any topics around that, because I do know that we can screw up what we're trying to do with our businesses when we're trying to reach out there, because I've watched myself do it and catch myself doing it, where I go slower on something that I could go faster on if I didn't have this little hang-up about it. And I want to get rid of all the rest of the remaining blocks that I have in that department. And I'm certain that this is applicable to a lot of other people, because I always hear them talking about it.
Jack, I like what you just said. I really agree with that. And I want to share something I've just recently realized I need to do for myself. And so now I wrap myself, one of my contemplations is to wrap myself with forgiveness. Yeah. And it's really intriguing to realize that I don't even have to know what I'm forgiving. We grow up in a culture that teaches us to be guilty about things. And we can be guilty about failing to meet a commitment. We can be guilty about not doing something, about something we said. We can be guilty about being late. There are so many ways that we're guilty of things. And that I found in my life that guilt has managed to also hold me back, in addition to that programming of about money being dirty and that. And so I'm now using this contemplation of just handing myself a heart that's filled with love and gratitude for all that I've done. And in addition to love and gratitude, it has forgiveness for what I haven't done.
And it's just come to me that I'm asking some of you to repeat yourselves until I get the damn point, because you mentioned that before, and I remember the exact same feeling I have right now I had then, and this time I'm going to listen to you, because that was really big then and it's really big now, and it's not necessary. I totally believe you also went on the last time, if I remember correctly, that you mentioned this was you don't have to know the cause of all the problems. You don't have to go back and do the Freudian thing, tell me about your mother and all that crap. Just, it's not going to change anything in and of itself. It's helped some people maybe, but for me, I totally agree and vibrate right with the fact that that's all dead. It's all gone. Everything a minute ago and gone. Now some more is gone, and it'll never be back. There's no sense in dwelling on any of that. And just that whole idea of starting fresh right now and giving yourself that heart is again resonating with me, and I'm not going to forget it this time. I didn't forget it. I just wasn't actively thinking like that on a daily basis. So thanks for that.
And two really important things to remember in that regard. Number one, remember that what you focus on expands. So you don't necessarily need or even want to focus on the details of what you're forgiving yourself for, or doing, not doing, whatever, because in focusing on those details, it will help you to attract more of that into your life. Yeah. A simple doing what John just suggested. A blanket of forgiveness is sufficient. And also, second point is keep in mind that the details are really, really important. For example, in the past, I've had an affirmation related to making money. Well, in that affirmation, it had everything to do with making money. I've made a lot of money, guys. I've paid off more than $6.1 million worth of medical bills in 10 years. That's a lot of money. I made every dime of it. However, by the time I got done paying for my $6.1 million worth of medical bills, guess how much I had left to show for it?
None.
Yeah, about $1, maybe 10. The details are so important. So now my affirmation is about making money and keeping money and doing it in a way that really is aligned with my commitment to transformation through relationships. Those details matter so much. Yeah. Both the details in visualizations and thoughts that you consciously put in and those that you unconsciously omit. For example, when I went through my miraculous transformation that saved my life, as I did this visualization exercise, I was imagining what it would be like to be healthy, happy, whole, have all my tubes disappear, have my hair come back in, imagining what it would be like to be able to walk again and dance again and really be able to feel whole again. Because even to this day, I don't have feeling in my legs and feet. Well, as I would do that visualization, it was totally subconscious. I didn't realize that the Gina I saw in that picture wore probably a size 12 to a 14. The Gina that was in the mirror at the time wore a size 22 or a size 24. I got exactly what I saw in that visualization, which meant that without going on a diet, without ever thinking about losing weight, I lost 68 pounds. Didn't even try. Didn't change my eating habits, didn't change my exercise habits, nothing. Weight just miraculously fell off quickly. I lost 68 pounds without going on a diet over about a 45-day period. Didn't change my eating habits, didn't change my exercise. I literally manifested exactly what I was focusing on. So don't do it at an unconscious level. Consciously decide every single little detail that you're choosing to focus on, because it is exactly what will manifest with a powerful mindset.
Hey, Gina?
Yes.
This is Joseph. You know, just listening to Jack and then listening to John, I guess one of my questions almost is this more of a guy thing as opposed to, because I can completely relate to where both of them were coming from. And you know, one of my biggest challenges, I guess, is it's kind of like, you know, when I take it off, I want to keep it off. I don't want to go back into, you know, some of the other things. I have been doing the Ho'oponopono strategy for a number of years, and sometimes I think it works, and sometimes I'm thinking it doesn't work. So there's a lot here, and I agree with, you know, the whole process of the mindset. It's just making it in such a way that it does what I want it to do in terms of how I want to be able to serve and what I want to do with what my business is and what the rest of my life on this planet is going to be. So it's going to be very interesting as we go forward.
It really will be.
Gina, that also brings. I'm sorry. That also brings to mind with what this last piece of conversation is about, how I have seen something so positive and miraculous, including like thousands of dollars being placed in my hand, knowing that it was just that close, and thinking, what if it doesn't come? And then look up and it hasn't come. Say that,
Christina.
and we will have those.
Shelby, could you mute, please?
When those thoughts, those doubts come in, and I think that gives more credence to Gina's taking yourself back to the positive on a conscious level, because they're going to come up. And the things of the past, even though you say, you know, it's dead, it's gone, it's behind me, yeah, it is, but it's still kind of caught up in you in various places. And so when those thoughts come up, you want to really acknowledge them and release them, because that's how you get them out. They may be dead and all of that, but if they're still in you, if that thought still shows up even once, it's still there. And there is a way to get it out so that it is gone, and that's by acknowledging that it's there. You're agreeing that it showed up, and now you can say goodbye, thank you, goodbye, and let it go. But it has to come out of you in order for you to know that it's still there or not. And when it does, doing that, you can let it go.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Cynthia.
So I'd just like to add one more thing, and really what it comes down to is actually us, you know, when we're talking about heart virtues and the heart and love, is being unconditional with ourselves and with others. And I find that is about not being attached to what other people do. Is really important for us to, you know, when we're doing business and we're providing our service, what other people do with it is up to them, not you. And, you know, I learned really what really brought me to where I am today was when I ran into an old friend of mine, and I was, you know, really getting mad because I had this wonderful gift of love that I really wanted everybody to understand. And people, you know, were pushing away from me because actually I was, you know, looking at them like there was something wrong with them and I wanted to fix them. And I learned when he said to me, he goes, Cynthia, let me tell you something. When you learn this, he goes, it's about, he says, I'm going to share something with you that changed my life. I was in jail for a while and no one knew this, but he goes, there was a Bible that was there and it was the only thing that I had to read. He goes, something that changed my life is when let me paraphrase this, it was when your words fall on deaf ears, move on. It means, you know, do what you're here to do and be, and plant that mustard seed. And what people do with it is up to them. And then, but there are people who want what you have, what you are giving, what you are sharing with them, what you're doing your business for. And that's who you will draw unto you. And so just to keep on going, keep on being who you are. Don't be attached to the, you know, the money and the material things and whatever, because that's just going to come with it all. I think, you know, even when we go into the details, sometimes, you know, detail is great, but if it doesn't show up exactly the way we detailed it, sometimes we will miss the miracle that's showing up for us and saying, hey, here I am, it's over here. So even when we're receiving gifts from others, and I've heard a woman, she used to say, I give and I give and I give, but no one gives back to me. But she was so blind to how other people were giving. They didn't give the way that she gave, so therefore she didn't see their gifts. And so we really have to let go of attachment, because we all are different. We all are unique. We're not here to find what our differences are. What we're here to find is our commonalities, what we have in common with one another, what we're here to be in community and unity with one another. And I think that has a lot to do, you know, I've had issues all my life too about money. And I found my abundance from being in my heart and finding my value, that is what is valuable in my life, my quality of life. And when I'm going towards the quality of life, the quantity is included. The abundance is all inclusive in that quality of life. And that comes from being unconditional with yourself and with others. So love authentically, giving yourself and others the freedom to be who they are. And
I know that
listen
much
to
to
your
be
heart,
true,
because
for
it is
sure.
so much wiser.
Yeah, I know. Because of letting go in the last couple of years of certain things that I used to hold on to dearly and as if my life depended on it, and then that letting go, I think another part of what I was saying earlier, where you almost feel like you're bringing a dirty topic into a clean topic about money and that sort of abundance, that it's not just for what I said, but also that I'm paying attention to it. And some part of me knows now that the less I pay attention to it, the more of that I get. Like in a whole different way. Not that, holding something in your thoughts and being very careful and specific, like Gina said, because you'll get exactly what you have out there. So you better be right about what you are putting out there. But the whole idea to switch it a little bit in just being of service and doing what you really love and just letting that be the core of everything, that there's other things that come with that don't have to be thought about really, really hard. They don't have to be conjured or witchcraft into existence by focusing directly on them and, sacrificing a pig or anything. They just come. Abundance follows somebody who's doing the right thing, the thing that matches with their heart and their vibration and what they love and what they're passionate about. And I know that to be true because I've watched in the last year as it's happened. As I have let go of certain things, more of them have come. And it actually can exist in the same world where we do focus on what we want and, all of that, and being very specific. Those two things actually exist in the same exact world, where on the one hand, in one context, you're not paying so much attention to it anymore because it comes by default as a symptom of a life well lived. And in the other, and then Gina's part of it actually is something I practice all the time too. I'm looking to get better at all of this stuff, and I have a feeling that we tend to attract, from what I've seen, people who are already pretty well on this path. They might be at different varying degrees, stages of understanding these things, but I don't think that anybody has perfected it yet. And I love getting I don't like just one source of metaphors. I like lots of different people's metaphors, lots of different people's life experiences coming to play, coming to the fore of how they've dealt with it. Like I get a lot out of what John said. I get a lot out of what other people, and it just keeps making me move down that path that I'm so enjoying being on. And I'm not nearly done yet. And I used to think also, just so everybody knows where I'm coming from, that I used to think that there were finite things in the world, that, if I go too fast, if I experience too much, I'm going to get to the end, and then I'm going to be really, really sad to know there's nothing more. Until I realized that there is an ever-expanding universe and that there's always something, there's always a next, there's always more. And so that also contributes to why I'm so excited to just be on the path wherever I am in my understanding. But I always want more, and I always know that there is more. There's more growth to always be had. And one final thing is that when I heard John say this weeks or maybe a month or two ago, and then when he said it today, I'm in a different place on the path. I'm further down the road. I understood more about what he was saying and about what everyone here is saying today than I've ever understood before, because I'm in a whole different place than I was then. And it's just like there isn't really repetition either, because it's always new. I always get something more out of it than I did before, with the same eyes and ears that I had, but a different heart.
Jack, thank you very much. In terms of abundance, I realized years ago that if it was even possible to finally eat at all the great restaurants in the world, that's only in this world. There are all those other worlds out there too.
Well, and during that time, lots of new restaurants came up while you were eating on your list.
I'd like to share something too that Christians can probably relate to, but I've noticed that very few people think about it, and it was an important lesson that Jesus taught that I try to apply when the negative thoughts about money come up. And that's one of my favorite parables of his was the one about talents. and how the rich man gave one talent to one of his servants, 3 to another, and I think 10 to another. And then when he came back, he asked for an accounting. And he rewarded the one who had done the most with the talents and punished the one who didn't do anything with his talent. And I think that's really important, because for me it is, because when I start thinking about all the negative slogans and sayings in our culture about money, and I realized that Jesus was using the example of a rich man to teach us the importance of applying our talents, it helps put a different spin for me on the role of money.
Yeah.
I think also if you feel, if you feel that there's abundance, that there's enough abundance, or there's more than enough abundance everywhere in the world for you, and you're appreciative of that, but also appreciative of everybody's unique talents and gifts. And I know that when I was in nursing, one of the unique things about me was that I always felt that whatever happened that day or whatever patient I took care of when I wasn't in nursing management was a blessing in my life. I didn't take it as that I was there to care for them. Yes, I was there to look out for them, but I felt that what they gave me in return was equally what I gave them while they were a patient. So I've always had the feeling that everybody's a blessing in my life, and if I can get to know their unique gifts and I can share my unique gifts with them, that it'll be just a fantastic world.
Yeah.
This is interesting. That what you pulled up, Institute of Heart Math? I was just going to ask if I had time to read a study, an experiment from the Institute of Heart Math. And you just pulled that up.
Absolutely do have time to do that. Aileen had shared a link with me that I could share with all of you that was this image, but this image had been shared by someone from Institute of Heart Math. And just so you guys know, when you see stuff shared on social, especially stuff that has a lot of engagement, it's a good idea to go backwards to find the originating source, because there's usually a lot more really good stuff that you're not seeing on the link that Aileen shared. While there were quite a few likes and several comments, this one, the original, has had 1,119 like it, 900 shares, and about 50 comments. So definitely go track backwards, but feel free to talk about heart math.
Yeah. Well, the Institute of Heart Math, they are phenomenal. It's one of my core mentors and everything that I have worked with for many years. They did a study on human DNA and how we create our reality by choosing it with our feelings. So in the experiment, some human DNA was placed in a container from which they could measure subtle changes in cellular structure. 28 vials of DNA were given, one each, to 28 trained researchers. Each researcher had been trained how to generate and feel feelings, and they each had strong emotions. It was discovered that the DNA changed its shape according to the feelings of the researchers. Number one, when the researchers felt gratitude, love, and appreciation, the DNA responded by relaxing and the strands unwound. The strands of the DNA became longer. And then number two, when the researchers felt anger, fear, frustration, or stress, the DNA responded by tightening up. You know, same thing that we do when we have pain and things like that. The strands became shorter and switched off many of our DNA codes. If you've ever felt shut down by negative emotions, this may explain why your body was equally shut down. The shutdown of the DNA codes was reversed, and the codes were switched back on again when feelings of love, joy, gratitude, and appreciation were felt by the researchers. This experiment was followed up by testing HIV-positive patients. They discovered that feelings of love, gratitude, and appreciation created 3,000 times more disease-resistant than those without the positive feelings. Emotional input can go far beyond the effects of neurological signals of the body. Individuals trained in deep love were able to actually change the shape of their DNA. Essentially, this report confirms that we influence our bodies and the whole web of creation through our emotional vibrations. This experiment gives us substantial evidence that we create our reality by choosing it with our feelings. And that's what I was talking about earlier. We feel first before we think. Our feelings activate our future and integrate it with the web of creation around us. This in turn connects to all the energy and matter of the universe. Emotional human performance. This energy is woven into a web surrounding your body which connects with all matter, time, and space. The center of this web, on an individual level, is the human heart. The heart marks the presence of an even more perfect center that many believe to be the sacred heart. In discovering this center, you are acquiring access to the command center of your life, where you will find answers to help you stay well, no matter what dreadful virus or bacteria may be floating around. By staying in feelings of joy, love, and gratitude, and appreciation, and appreciating your life will immeasurably improve. Heart cells were the first differentiating cells to appear. As a proto-organ, the heart virtually was your body. Pretty cool stuff, huh?
Yeah. Major parallels.
Fabulous.
Yeah, man, my brain is going off the chart right now with the stuff that you're... Remember when I was talking about capitalism and socialism and systems and of any kind, just systems, and I'm looking at this picture going and seeing the manifestation of that idea in this graphic, the veins, the bones, everything else, that's all just a system. And without the right heart setting, without the right awareness of heart and that battery that powers the rest of that system, there are good and there are bad things. There are good and there are bad people. There are good and there are bad outcomes of the same thing. The system itself is meaningless unless it has the heart. You know, so now I'm seeing just the physical manifestation of the things I said about any other kind of system. That's obviously a system we're looking at right now, a circulatory system, a digestive system, everything. And the brain, and I've always been taught that the brain is, you know, if you're going to focus on any important organ in your body, that's the one, right? Because it makes your eyes blink, and we thought it controlled your heart. You know, that's what I thought when I was growing up. It controlled the beating and it was mindful, that's where the word came from, I guess, of making everything go in your body. And then now we're learning that's not necessarily the case. And so it's just a tool. Just like a person with the right heart settings can sit down at a computer, which is just a system, just a tool, and they can either create something great value that's loving and great and awesome and a great service, a great product out of that thing. Out of that same exact computer can come a bunch of crap. It's not the computer. It's not how powerful it is, the processor or anything in it. The processor in a computer is a brain, is the equivalent of the thing in your body that can process lots of instructions and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, man, the parallels are... So I guess when all these kinds of parallels match up like this and we keep getting on the same thing from different angles, from different metaphorical values or whatever, it means we're all syncing up a little bit here around a certain topic. To me, that's what it means.
And Jack, something I just realized based on what you just said.
Yeah.
hang on a second. Something I just realized. This is the Mindset Systems Workshop. It is not about your brain and your mind. It is about, first and foremost, your heart. And what your heart can do to help your mind and your brain. Go ahead, Joseph.
You know, Gina, I do believe in serendipity and how things can happen. So I'm sitting here listening to this whole discussion, and part of me wants to kick myself for the things I haven't done in the last however many years. But in the meanwhile, I get a phone call while this is going on, and it happened to be from my insurance agent who does my home and car, who's also part of the B&I group that I'm part of. And I created a website for the group so that we could have our own identity online and, you know, have all the members be able to have a place where they've got their name and their business and their phone number, et cetera, et cetera. And for about the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've kind of been, as she put it, preaching to them that it would be really nice if they gave me a testimonial of what B&I had meant to them and their business. One of the guys gets up in the group pretty much every month and says, this group has meant $100,000 to me last year in business. But I've only had 4 out of the 40 people leave me something that I can put online about them. Well, she called me up and told me that a gentleman had called her who happened to have gone to the site, saw a few of the people in our group that he knew, including her, and he's going to come to our meeting next week to check out the group to see if he wants to join or not. And it was kind of like, you know, I've been doing this and not getting much of any feedback, and all of a sudden, while we're on the call, at the webinar or the seminar here, I get a call with that information. It's just, it kind of blew my mind.
How interesting is that, Joseph? Welcome to our world.
So could it be said by you experts here that there's an alignment that happens just by being on and being present on this sort of event in time and space, that just being here is like going and getting your car aligned. It's not that you're learning something that later on you're going to benefit from. The benefit comes from just being here now and listening and really absorbing what's being said and what's being conveyed, that the benefit comes from right here and now. You're not writing it down in a notebook to study later, and then things will start to happen for you. Things will start to change for you. Things will be better. It's that being here, right this moment, just the benefit of here and now is getting everybody in line, because we feel that with all of the stuff that's being said, and it just keeps matching up. It just keeps, if we stayed on for 24 hours, who knows how long, how many lining up of energies and things would happen, and how many phone calls each of us would get, or emails, or things in our business, things in our lives would just keep happening as a result of the group power of this, maybe? Or I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but does it make sense to anybody else?
Works for me, Jack.
The power of group thought, Jack. There was a study done a number of years ago by a radio station in conjunction with the Scientific Institute. And it was a radio show that was international. And they had the millions of people listening to the show focus their thoughts on a light bulb in Washington, D.C. Now, this particular light bulb didn't happen to be plugged into anything. It wasn't even screwed into a lamp. What do you think happened to that light bulb with a couple million people thinking about having it light up?
It lit up.
It did.
It lit it up.
Well, of course, right?
Wow.
Of course. If each one of us within ourselves can put out the message, and we get a group together to each do that, the power in our own hearts is amplified 100 times. Imagine what happens with 20 of us in a group.
A couple of years ago, I took part in something called the Intention Experiment with Lynn McTaggart. I don't know if
Oh,
you've heard of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely have.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing.
That's a
but
great book
more,
and everything too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The first one was to deliberately focus on peace in Sri Lanka, which was in, I don't exactly remember, not exactly civil war, but there was a lot of conflict, let's say. And I don't remember exactly the results, but it worked, you know, that things happened. And, there was more peace and less violence, and I think it sort of fizzled out shortly after that. It was just amazing. And there have been others since then.
Why does it fizzle out shortly thereafter? Think about it. It makes so much sense. It fizzles out because people's attention and focus goes back to life. And they stop focusing on that which, as a group, they had been focusing on.
No, I meant the conflict fizzled out.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't remember. It's about 5 years ago now, so I can't.
Wow. That's
it's the same idea.
Yeah, they actually did. Yeah, they did it where there was a large amount of murders and crime and everything, and they focused on that area. I do believe it's somewhere in Washington, D.C., around that area. And while they were all setting their intentions there, it actually did. They show that it dropped, the crime rate went down, and more peace came over the city during that time.
Well, I think it was
And they have
coincides
several
with
of that. I mean, that's been going on.
Yeah, when Washington was the murder capital, the gun violence capital of the country at the time, and then there was Chicago, and now it's Chicago actually that it leads the statistics, and that's the first time that D.C. had gotten off that pedestal, that negative pedestal of being the best at killing people. It was right around the time this study. That's why they focused on D.C. because it was the #1 gun violence capital of the country, and yeah, so that I remember this stuff. And then I just as a real quick thing to the flip side, tell me why I'm attracted to other people's feelings about this stuff, because I remember watching a video maybe on YouTube or someplace where there was a comment area about this particular study where all the, and I'm making air quotes, all the practical and logical people came on and said, oh, that's just coincidence, oh, that's, and I found myself, and I do this, I still do this, and I don't know why and how I can improve on this exactly, but I look to see what other people are saying, and it's the biggest mistake I think you can make, is just take the information and feel it and know it to be true or know it to not be true, but know it within yourself whether or not, and just, I know what I'm mechanically supposed to do. I can't, it's like being on a highway and turning your head when you know it's a wreck and there could be something you don't want to see, but you do it anyway. And I do that with misinformation and bad and negativity and stuff. And I think a lot of people do because the Internet's kind of full of more than that than there is all this positive stuff. All the good stuff in the world far outweighs all the bad stuff in the world. And nobody seems to know that or care about it. And here I am looking at these daggone comments discounting this because there's no way you can point to it on a chart or do any kind of scientific thing to prove it in their mind the way that other things are proven.
There is now, though, but and again, it is about, that's what we're all here for, that education that we're providing people, this information that we're sharing here today for people to understand and know their hearts. Oh my gosh, that will change so much, because once we start realizing, just like the article I just, the research I just read about, we feel first before we think, our feelings are what create our reality, because most of the time people are in their heads. We've been taught, the logical side of things, and that we're really material, and we are taught to worry about what other people think and what's outside of us. It is now about us learning about ourselves, first knowing thyself. That's what the heart virtue is about too, and the more we know ourselves, the more we feel what the truth is. That's all that we've been separated from. The truth we've been separated from is that love is, the core of who we are. And once people start learning that, it will change the world.
When you just said that, it reminded me.
And there's, with.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it reminded me.
No, I was done, Mike.
Oh, okay. Thank you. The songs that were out, Love is the Way, and it's all about love, and we equated that to something that was not hairy-fairy, but something that was hippie versus something that was really the truth, that the heart was really the source, that love was really the grounding mechanism for everything that we were searching for in life. And it was the indoctrination against that took so many of us in so many directions away from center. Now is where and when people are searching for and finding center again, finding the grounding, and it is in heart, it is in love.
I think the hippies were the first wave, really, and they had it right, but they appeared to be such an extreme group that it was just not acceptable to the majority of the population. And now this kind of wave of people waking up to what is in their hearts and what their hearts can do is much, much more widespread.
Well, it doesn't hurt that now the hippies are actually in charge of the companies.
Yeah, that's too.
Yeah, the hippies actually took over, and they just stopped calling themselves hippies, but they're still there. And probably the worst thing that ever happened was the labeling of people who were just generally, what you could say about that group is they're free thinking. They don't think that the systems that were set up were being used properly by the rest of society, that there's another way to think, and that was in the midst of a society that was extremely, you got to do this, and then by the time you're this part of your life, you got to do this, and you're going to get a gold watch at the end, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's going to have a really serious, that's where people say hippie in a derogatory sense, and they really, back in the day, there was a war between people who were just happy. They just were really focusing on making themselves happy, and that was the first big, giant group of people in human history, at least recent human history that I know of, that did that. And it really, really did not vibrate well with the rest of the world who thought there was a system and a pattern to everything. Whether they personally believed it or not, they did the college thing, they did the work for the same company for the rest of their lives, they carried themselves on in the religions that were imposed on them as little children, and they just did all that stuff. And I think that maybe the contrast that came from that is that deep down they knew that what they were believing in, what they thought that their whole structure was about, that was the center of their universe, wasn't really true, wasn't really what they really wanted. And therefore they took it out on the so-called hippies for putting a mirror in front of all of society to say this might not be the exact way we want to carry on.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that we really are at a different time today, the fact that people are really awakening to things like heart virtues and mindset and spirituality is directly because those that were hippies back in the 60s now are the people that are the leaders that are running the companies, etc. It's the biggest reason that there's almost a movement around this stuff today.
Yeah,
ahead,
I had a friend tell me on Facebook it was something really profound.
Yeah,
I had seen him develop over time. Sorry, Cynthia, I should have let you go. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Got that big lag time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding. I apologize. Well, I was going to say we are measuring what we couldn't measure, though, before, too. We're coming into that higher consciousness of measuring things, and we're learning what we haven't been able to measure in the past has been more valuable in our lives than the things that we were measuring, right? One of the things that comes really clear to me, some other science to help people realize how important love and compassion and kindness are, is even our own health and well-being. So they are finding that, when we talk about the heart being the first cell, our organs and tissues, completely renew the intestinal lining renews every 5 days. Our liver renews every 3 to 5 years. Our pancreas renews every 4 to 5 years. Our lungs renew every 4 to 5 years also. And the heart takes the longest. The heart renews every 15 to 20 years. So how they renew is we make stem cells. But we're told as we get older that we stop making stem cells. And the reason why we stop making stem cells, though, is because of stress. But they did a study about, it's done about 3 years now ago, on the Tibetan monks who were incarcerated and beaten and tortured with the Chinese back in the day, and they were released. And the reason why they were released is because of their compassion. But they decided to do a study with them because these Tibetan monks who made it through all that trauma are living to be in their hundreds. And they wanted to know how these guys, how they're living into their hundreds, and they're vibrant and they're young. And so they started doing the scientific studies with them and everything, and also Dalai Lama was there during the studies. And what they found through the studies is that these Tibetan monks are still making stem cells. And they want to know why. Well, here's a big reason why. Dalai Lama asked one of the monks, they said, what was the hardest thing you went through while you were incarcerated and tortured during that time? And the monk replied back, my greatest fear was that I would lose compassion for my enemy. We heal through our compassion. We heal ourselves. We will continue, as long as we're in unconditional love and compassion and kindness with ourselves and others, we continue to regenerate and renew ourselves. And our hearts, if they regenerate and renew every 15 to 20 years, guess where we're at now? I mean, where were we 20 years ago? And now we were talking about, who's running the companies and stuff now. Well, those hearts are being regenerated, and here we come. So I just want to put that out there.
That's incredible, Cynthia. Wow. So I want to make sure we have time for takeaways before my 5 o'clock call. You guys have a little bit of homework between now and April 10th and 11th. You want to be sure that you start going through Mindset Systems Workshop 1, which is available at askggg.com/handout, askggg.com/handout, and really go through some of that in advance of our next live sessions on April 10th and 11th, especially the stuff in the first 3 or 4 modules. I'm trying to get it into the chat for you, and I'm not typing and talking at the same time very well. The first module is on how your passion applies to the law of attraction. It's a lot of what we've been talking about today. The second module on goal setting, that's about the only module that we are going to repeat when we get back together again, simply because the way I teach it has advanced so much. So skip over Module 2 in the replay of Mindset Systems Workshop 1. Go on to Module 3, Identify and Shifting Your Fears and Beliefs. As we talked about a little bit today, so much of what we do is based on our fears, our beliefs, and what we know. And quite often, there are underlying fears and beliefs that aren't even at a conscious level, that you don't even realize exist within you. And when you can really identify them, embrace them, and just acknowledge their existence, you're 95% through overcoming it and moving on to something more positive. So if you just go through these first few modules, dealing with common fears and beliefs, Module 4, I go through that one as well, and Module 5, Affirmations, Visualization, and the Law of Attraction. Those 5 modules are really going to help you get a much better foundation going into April 10th and 11th. So what are you guys taking away from today?
Gina, let me clarify something, please.
Yes, John.
Yeah, you just said those 5 modules, but I heard you
4
say
modules,
that.
sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. That was it.
You are right. 4, thank you.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
I'm having a hard time dealing with this whole thing because it's like we got on this and you have publicly talked about this event as something that I even took to heart. Even knowing, being through this stuff and going through it with you and going through it otherwise, talking with lots of different people, that it was still business. It's like business, right? I'm having a hard time dealing with the stuff that Cynthia just wrapped up with and coinciding that with and reconciling that with the relatively shallow thing of just how this relates to business. Because I think what she just said was really important for the entire world to understand, like a really global, world-changing kind of thing. And I'm both excited that I'm here with you all doing this, but I can almost not even deal with it. It's like, that's too big. That's just, and then the business part of it really just becomes like, really, do we even need to talk about that anymore? Go get your $1 million. Go do whatever, you know, that's almost the details now. So I'm just, my reflection on this is I can just hardly even deal with it all. I'm going to have to think a little bit more about all of this stuff and kind of try to absorb it. I don't feel like I'm able to.
That right this minute, Mr. Jack, shall I?
Okay.
So business has been what business has been for a very, very long time. It is and has been for a long time about putting an innovation out to the world in a way that makes money. Given what we've learned today, I would invite all of you to shift your thinking about business a little bit. Instead of business being about putting an innovation out to the world in a way that makes money, what if business was really about putting your heart virtue out to the world in a way that causes transformation through relationships so that the people whose lives you've touched can express their gratitude through money?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting in my head. It's business as unusual. It's completely flopping everything and flipping everything, and I guess I thought, and one part of me knows that to be true, and the other part is still freaking out about it. So I'm just, I'm quite amazed to be a part of all of this. This is the one workshop that I am the least, you know, this isn't what I have always seen myself as being or doing, you know, because I've always thought of it as separate, and what's happening is it's merging with, it is what I've always been and what I've always been doing, and I'm reconciling that I've thought of myself in one way, how I manipulate Google to do whatever I want it to do, or how I, you know, and teach people those kinds of things, lead generation and all that, and I mistakenly made that more of who I am than it really was true about me. It's this. It's like, and then that's what is actually driving all the business. That's what attracts people to me in my business, is that I teach the same things that other people are teaching, but I do it in a way that it's coming from a certain place in me that makes certain people really want to be my clients. And it also makes other people run away like their hair's on fire, but that's good for me too, because I don't, you know, if we're not doing the, but yeah, this whole thing's just kind of flipping me over. This is awesome. I'm very, very grateful.
What if it is still about doing exactly what you've always done, teaching people how to manipulate Google, but not for the purpose of making more money, but for the purpose of the definition of business I just gave.
Having a better life.
Manipulating Google so that you have a bigger opportunity to transform lives through relationships in a way that allows the transformation that you're causing to express its gratitude in the form of money.
Yeah.
You realize that the power that you have can literally change the world.
You realize how surprising it could be to get to the end of one of these things, realizing that you only expected this little bit about it, and that was going to be great, and then you come out with it with this huge mountain of, you know, like the power in your fingertips kind of stuff. That's kind of tripping me out. That's all I'm saying. And I'm grateful for it. I love it.
That's awesome, Jack. Who else has a takeaway?
I know, it was awesome.
Gina, this is Terry.
Terry, how the heck are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I am wonderful, my dear.
Great. This is, it's so, I knew this community was like this, but there's pockets of communities like this. The other big, you know, when you're saying about business, Arianna Huffington is on this big kick now. She calls it the third metric, meaning business needs to be about, she's like a simple way of putting it, it's not just making money, it's how it's done. You know, and she had this realization in her life, you know, things that happened. And I'm hesitating. And Jack, you'll get it. Like the confusion part where you are right now is perfect because it's what changes the way your thinking was and lets you change direction a little bit, right? And that's what's so cool about this group is it is to be open to it. And the presence of being in energy, that's how all this occurs. Other people sit there and say, what's the proof of that? Oh, you can't say that. You can't do this. And what Gina has said all along is you have to move past those people for whatever point they're at in their lives. They're not able to hear it and you can't worry about it. Like that negative energy can just pull you down. So this stuff, it's to me, I don't call it my mindset. It's what I teach is mindfulness, which the cool part is in the original language, Pali, it's really heartfulness because they don't separate the mind and Tibetan Buddhism thing, they know it doesn't come from your mind, it comes from your heart.
Yes.
So what you're just using different words, but you know, it's all of this is the same thing, said a little bit differently, and you're right. But the cool part is it's business is being changed. It's been this very masculine model from the top down, and the Dalai Lama said it a couple years ago, and he says women are going to change the world, and he really thinks American women are going to change the world, and it's because we're pushing back saying, look, this is important. It means things need to be done. It can be done differently. That's the exciting thing.
Totally agree. And Lynn suggested busy as unusual instead of business as usual.
No.
Busy as unusual. Great medication, she says. Good job, Lynn.
That's another good thing. Yeah, the way she said that is a whole, like it's the same, but it's also got a new little addition thing, because busy is not necessarily the goal. That's the unusual thing.
Yeah. I love it. Who else has a takeaway today?
Gina, John.
I'll jump in here.
Let's do Cynthia and then John. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. All right. I just love coming into this community because it has expanded my heart tremendously through our relationships here. I remember one day I was, when we were talking about community, one of the things that I find that has a lot to do with our businesses and our tribe, our community, the people were, the customers were really wanting to help and do business with. It is about, I wrote, it's the quality of life for all is more assured by the survival of each person, and the quality of life for each person is more assured by the survival of the whole. And in there, you know, is that quality of life, and I think this information that we're receiving today is about the quality of our life, and is what our business is, what our families are, what our friendships are. It's all those relationships, and relationships are about experiences. And through our experiences, we gain information. And I believe that is absolutely what we're here for. And there was a quote that I have on my, where the love seat is on my website. And it was a quote from Glenda Green, who wrote The Keys of Yeshua. And one of the quote is, "Love creates all life through its desire for experience." And that's what these relationships are, our experience with our business, how we want to be here in the world, and what we're here to be as far as who we are, is through those relationships that we have in our community and that unity that we join together and give to one another. So it's all one. It's the whole. And I'm so happy to be here to also be able to contribute, because our value and worth is the love that we are. And thank you for letting me, allowing me to come in here and contribute what I love to share and educate, that higher consciousness. So, and I think it has everything to do with what we're here to be. So be the life you love.
Oh, thank you so much, Cynthia. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Gina, thank you. What I wanted to do is, this is not directly on topic, but yet it is part and parcel of everything we've been going through for the last few weeks, and that's that, as you mentioned earlier in the show, you treat each of us as your children, and you're always looking for ways to help each of us individually achieve our goals and dreams. And the other day you gave me a referral to a possible joint venture partner and business partner that I've followed up on, and I will have a second call today with Joel. I'm really, really, really excited about it, because I think our hearts are very closely aligned in our attitudes towards service and towards people. So the potential there is great, and even if it doesn't manifest into a firm business arrangement, the experience of working with another individual like this has been very rewarding. And so I wanted to say thank you for your love for all of your students and each of us individually.
You are so welcome, John. And I have learned much about money and financing and business and using other people's money and whatnot from Joel directly. And the opportunity that he has for just one person right now is probably bigger than any other opportunity I've even heard you talk about ever, John. Probably 20 to 30 times bigger than any other possible opportunity. So for me to be able to take someone like Joel who comes to me for advice and say, oh my goodness, I have the perfect person to introduce you to. And I could have literally introduced him to anybody. But to have someone that I can trust, that knows my heart and knows my teaching, to bring to someone like Joel is pretty darn cool, if you ask me, John. So thank you so much for letting me have that wonderful opportunity.
And also, Gina, you have my thanks. Greg wanted to try and get the word out about heart virtues to billions of people in his lifetime. And I think through this program that I will help him do that.
I know you will help him do that, Sarah. This program is going to become a big part of Directions U in the coming months and years, not just in this workshop, but throughout everything DU has to offer. We will together impact the lives of so many people, because keep in mind, it's not just going to touch the lives of the people that come in contact with the teaching. Because we teach people how to build businesses that transform other people's lives through relationships, it's really the people that they serve that get impacted the most by heart virtues. Can you imagine how many lives we will literally touch by sharing heart virtues with all of the people at DU, Sarah?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's simply amazing. I'm so pleased.
It could truly be every person on this planet. It is a realistic goal. And I know when people hear me say that, they kind of laugh. I've had JV partners and peers go, yeah, right. But it is very, very doable. Very, very doable. Because DU touches the lives of all of you as entrepreneurs. And if each one of you just apply a teeny tiny little sliver of what we've shared with you today, so that instead of going out and selling people something, you're really going out following your own heart virtue, really serving people, and strategically monetizing at the same time, so that the people you serve can really express their gratitude to you in the form of money, we really will make a very, very positive impact on this world. And what a great legacy for us all to leave.
Can I say thank you to Sarah and Cynthia as well? It's been really, really interesting. I really enjoyed the whole idea of the heart virtue and the way it was presented. It made some interesting clarifications there, and very much aligned with where I am at the minute, and living from the heart. And it's just lovely to hear all of us sort of resonating with it, with the idea of heart-based, heart-based entrepreneurship and heart-based living. Really, it's I love it all. Thank you.
You are so welcome, Aileen. And for alignwithyourpurpose.com, I could definitely see you bringing Sarah and Cynthia into your curriculum so that you can help all of your people find their heart virtue as well. Isn't that what it truly means to align with your purpose?
Yeah, it's just different words, but yes, of course it is. And Cynthia's in there already, by the way.
I am aware of that.
Yeah. Sarah will have to talk.
Okay.
It is not often enough that I get to be the proud mama and bring my students to my students. So I am eternally grateful to Cynthia and Sarah for all that they've contributed today. I hope you guys really feel, not just see, what we did here today. This was not Gina and Jack teaching you. This was each and every person on this call shaping the content. If all of you hadn't been interacting with us, the content would have looked very different than what it became. And I want this to be an example, not just for you to learn from, but for you to apply in your own businesses as well. When you go out to do what you do best, to really live your heart virtue, to really put your heart virtue out to the world, I really want you to keep in mind how different the content becomes when you get your audience interacting and shaping how it gets created. It really always changes what Jack and I intended to put out. And we have to go out doing this in a way that keeps us open to the intention, yet not at all attached to the total outcome, or it limits the interaction and how all of you get to shape the content. So I am really grateful for each and every one of you that were here today to help co-create this amazing, amazing course that is about to touch an awful lot of people. Jack, anything else to add?
Yes, my short takeaway is holy crap. I would like that to be the former one. Just strike it from the record. Strike it from the record, the former stuff, and just I want everybody just to know holy crap, and that ought to get people coming to the next one.
I swear you were a farmer at some point, Jack.
In a past life, probably.
Yeah. And thank
So
thank you everybody, but Sarah and Cynthia for being the catalyst for the beginning of this whole thing and this discussion and carrying it through. You guys are awesome. Everybody here is.
For all of you, feel free to go into askggg.com/forum, our Google Plus community, and share with us in the community some takeaways that are really more concrete about what you learned today and how it will shape what you do going forward, so that we can use it to bring even more people into the Mindset Systems Workshop on April 10th and 11th. I can't wait to hear how all of you are really going to apply what you learned today. Again, thank you so much, Sarah and Cynthia. We could not have done today without you guys. I am so excited about the upcoming Heart Virtues Life Camp. AskGGG.com/Heart Virtue. If you haven't already registered, make sure you go do that right away. And Sarah will get in touch with you shortly with the dates, times, and all the other details of it. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you guys all on April 10th. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, and thanks, everyone.
Gina, are you still on? Or Jack?
The